everybody, I am so glad you're joining me today. Today I'm using this stamp set called Daisy Daydream, and I'm going to create a fall card. And I'm also going to use a couple of sentiments from this set. I've already gone ahead and stamped this for a few of the florals on a Bristol Smooth cardstock because I plan to use Arteza markers or watercolor markers for this, and I'm going to show you two different ways to color this floral. For the first one here, the larger one, I'm going to color them more in the darker, deeper purple color, and all I'm doing is I'm adding the darkest color to the shadow areas of the petal, and then I'm trying to add a tiny line in between the larger petals, and if they have more space, I try to add two lines in the center of the larger petals, and then all I do is I just blend it with the next color, which is the lighter burgundy, and then then after that medium color, which is red, and then I'm going to blend that with a pink color. And while I'm blending, I'm making sure to leave a very thin sliver of white in the center of each of these petals, and that kind of creates those ridges on the petals that you see in real life. Of course, this is not hyper realistic coloring at all, it's just very close to it. And I'm just going to repeat this on all the petals. I am going to show you an easier way of coloring this petal as well, without worrying about adding those thin slivered lines in between the petals and stuff like that. The reason not the reason, I just wanted to let you know that you can actually look at all your flowers in your stamp set, and you can create any seasonal flowers with that. For example, this particular set was released in spring, and it's actually a daisy floral set, but I decided to color these flowers more in the fall colors like yellows and purples and some lighter shades of pinks, some peaches, and then I just combined them together to create this fall themed color. So here you can see I just went ahead and completed that entire flower the same way as I talked earlier. And then for the center of the flower, very simple, I just did some basic blending from darker green to a lighter green to, I didn't use a green, the last color I used is a yellow, just because yellow, when you blend it with green, it almost becomes green, lighter green, and that's the reason why I went with yellow. And then here you can see for the second flower, this time I am not adding any ridges, nothing. I'm just taking the lighter of the pink shades. I took three colors, two pinks and one peach. Initially, I started with a darker pink and then I kept it aside. So you don't want to use the darker pink first. Use the lighter pink and the peach to just blend it off. So I'm just using a very, very light pink here, and I'm blending that with a peach color, and I'm going to repeat that all through. So you see I'm not adding any lines, I'm not blending it in any way, just very simple mixing of colors and then just coloring the petal. So once I'm done coloring the whole thing, now I'm going to take the darker of the pink. You can see how dark that pink is compared to the light that we used. So I'm going to use the dark pink, and I'm just going to add two lines or one line for a few of them in the center of that petal. And you can see here how easy and simple it is instead of sitting and blending the way I did earlier. I mean, they both look beautiful. So it's basically, if you are not sure about blending fine lines, this is an easier way of doing it. Just go ahead and add basic colors in the bottom of the petal, and then just add the lines using the ridges of the petals using a darker color, or in my case here it's a dark pink. And you can see when you look at them, they pretty much have very similar style. And I'm going to do the same thing with the center of the flower, just adding some dark green, blending it with light green, and then blending that with yellow. Now if you have green in your tip of the yellow marker, all you do is just scrub it off and the color should come out. I just stamped two flowers here. You can see the closer look of that. Now I've also gone ahead and stamped two leaves, and I'm going to show you the two different ways I colored, not really the ways, actually, it's more how I colored them differently. So for the first one here, I just kept the color to green. So I used a darker green, a mid green, and a light green. And for the second leaf here, because it's fall, I wanted the green to have the leaf to have a bit of yellow in it. So I just took away one of the greens, so one of the mid-tone green, and then I just kept the dark green and in the lighter green from the previous leaf, and then the yellow that I used for the center of the flowers. And you can see how that little bit of variation just changes the tone of the leaf. And then once I was done coloring, I went ahead and there are some coordinating dies for this stem set, and I'm just going to go ahead and die cut that. I had already gone ahead and colored a few more flowers in die cut, because otherwise it would take too long to do the whole thing in the video. So I've done a bunch of it and I've kept it aside. Now I'm taking this blue cardstock and this stencil called, it's called the Repeating Brick Stencil, and I'm going to add this blue oxide ink just on some places through the stencil. So I'm not stenciling the entire background, the entire cardstock, but I'm just picking and choosing a few different places to just give that little bit of a brick peeking through the wall effect. And I'm just, like you can see here, I'm adding a little bit on the top, a few in the center. So randomly, no, there's no rhyme or reason here, just randomly adding the brick pattern to this cardstock. Now this cardstock is cut to my card base is 5 by 7, so this is cut a 1/4 inch lesser than that, so it's 4 3/4 and 6 3/4. And then I'm using the same oxide ink and I'm blending the edges of the of this cardstock using the same ink, just to kind of tone down the bright blue of the cardstock, because I want this color to be quite muted when I go to add the florals onto this this cardstock. So just keep blending it, and I'm also blending it over the place where I added that stencil. And then I'm going to take some white gouache here and this fan brush that I use for splattering, and I'm going to splatter that white paint all over this blue cardstock that we just blended using the stencil. And then I'm going to heat set it because I want to stamp a sentiment on it. And before that, I'm just going to create a frame using this gold glitter cardstock and 2 rectangle dies. And here you can see the frame that I have die cut. And then I'm going to take this sentiment, and this sentiment reads, "We'll always be friends because you match my level of crazy." That's really a funny sentiment. Anyway, sorry, I don't know, I lost the footage there. All I did is I just stamped that sentiment in the center of that blue cardstock, and I with gold embossing powder. And here I've taken that frame and I'm temporarily adhering using some sticky notes on the corners, and I'm going to start playing the arrangement, or trying to put this arrangement of flowers on 2 corners of this what do you call the frame. And I've really fast forwarded this a whole lot, to about 4 times, because trust me, it took me almost 35 minutes to figure out. I'm not kidding you. When I say 35 minutes, I'm serious. It took me forever to figure out how I wanted this floral composition to be on this cardstock. And honestly, I didn't want you to sit through it, and it's just not worth it. But all I did is just kind of created a composition that I thought looked nice. Some in one of the clusters I put 3 flowers, in another cluster I think I put 4 flowers. And then some I added underneath the frame, and some I added. But now here's the thing: do not adhere your frame down because once if you adhere the frame down, you won't be able to tuck in those flowers. So just temporarily keep the frame on the edges, like you can see here. I've temporarily adhered the frame, and then I stuck down the flowers that I want underneath the frame. Once you've decided where those flowers are and you've glued them down, then you go ahead and add whatever kind of glue you want on the frame. In my case, I'm adding foam tape, and I'm just removing that. And after I've removed the foam tape's backing, I'm going to add some liquid glue onto it, and this helps me to center it and have some wiggle room to move around that frame if I got it wonky. So now you can see I'm going to adhere that on top of the flowers that are directly adhered onto the cardstock. Now I'm going to adhere the top flowers. So I'm going to add a little bit of pop here and there where it's not on the frame, and where it's on the frame I'm just adding liquid adhesive. I hope I'm making sense here. Please, if you have any questions, ask me in the comment box below and I will try my best to answer everything. And then once I have done laying all the flowers, now I go ahead and add the leaves. When I'm adhering these flowers, even the bottom flowers on the blue cardstock too, I don't add glue all to the edge. I just add glue to the center so that I can always tuck in flowers and leaves and other things later on. And that kind of gives me some time to kind of play around, and if I have to change things, I can always change my mind. So anyway, here you can see I'm just going ahead and adding all the flowers, and then I have stamped the additional sentiment, which is "You Are Amazing," onto a white cardstock with black pigment ink, and I'm going to adhere that at the bottom of the bottom cluster. Like, I'm going to tuck that in a little bit into one of the flowers, and then I'm going to let it like go over the gold frame a bit, just a little bit. And then once I was done gluing that, I went ahead and added some um, just some gold sequins here and there, and just a scattering of gold sequences. And then that pretty much completed the front panel, and then all was left was I had to add this to the white note card, which was cut at 5 by 7, and I'm just going to add some liquid glue all over the back of it, and then just adhere that to this. And then for the inside, because I had another couple more flowers left, I just went ahead and added the flower to the corner, and I just added another leaf to the edge of that flower. And then I took that same stencil and I stenciled that brick with the blue oxide ink, just in a few places, one on the top and one coming through the like as if the brick was underneath the flower. And that's pretty much it. And that completed the card. And here's the closer look of the card that we just made. I hope I've inspired you to look at your floral stamps to create cards for every season that's available. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.